From the Newstalk 989 studios, the voice of the Ensemble River Valley, here's Good Day Oscoda with Jenn and Dirk. The left and the right, let's all get along.
Newstalk 989, good morning, good day Oscoda. It's the Jenn and Dirk show. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning, Dirk. Good to see you.
Oh, let me put my headphones on. There we go. Cold today. Cold.
Yes, very, very cold out there. How was your start?
Cold. In fact, my start almost didn't work this morning. I think at my house it was -2, and wind chill felt like -11, and the old Ford F-250 Newstalk monster truck barely turned over. And I was going, oh no, because I couldn't remember if I had charged my battery jumper.
Oh.
You guys have one
Yeah.
of those little charger things? Those are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I give them as Christmas gifts. It's the most useful Christmas gift, especially up north.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, I'm glad everything started and you got in.
A lot to talk about today. We got crazy monkeys pooping all over a road. We've got Perchville coming up, some other festivals coming up. We're going to get into those as well. But the weather today, right now, 5 degrees in Oscoda. It's going to get to a high of 17 degrees. And looking at the radar and the weather temperature map, all of Michigan, all of Wisconsin, all of Minnesota, all of Canada, all temperatures below 10 degrees. So it's going to be cold.
The day to stay home.
Tomorrow, high of 28. For the weekend, lows of 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, 9 on Sunday, and highs of 13, 20, and 23. So it's going to continue just to stay cold. Oh, and 2 losers last night, Jenn. Pistons and Michigan State both lost.
Oh, bad day for Michigan sports. Oh, did you
Unless
hear
you're a
about
Ohio
Brady?
State fan like me. Yeah! Oh, hey! Give me an IO. Oh, don't. You did that last time.
I'm not going to keep doing that. I love you, but I'm not going to keep giving you your IOs. You go get yourself an IO horse somewhere else.
Penn County boys basketball, they won last night.
Woohoo, the conning!
Jeez. All right, what you got over there?
Well, I thought we heard something about some monkeys. You gotta tell me about these monkeys, Dirk.
The story gets better and better as I think it's been a couple of days now since this happened, and I lost the story.
No.
It's gotta be.
No.
Yeah.
We have to hear about the monkeys. He had to stop telling me about the monkeys because he's like, no, we have to tell everybody about this.
All right, monkey story.
Oh my gosh.
COVID story. And
It's
texting and
9
driving, they passed the House to ban that. We're going to get into the details of that as well. And where'd the monkey story go?
Oh no.
Meanwhile, you got something else there coming up as well while I
Yes.
search out the fantastic monkey story.
Yes. We'll start with we told them Perchville's coming, right? Have we gone there yet? Perchville's coming up, but before that, in Frankenmuth, guys, is Zender's Snowfest. Beautiful time. They bring out all of those ice sculptures and the snow sculptures, and that starts today, runs through the 31st. Looking forward to that. Hope y'all can get out there. The temperatures are right for it. Just dress warm. Bring out those hand warmers and boot warmers. You guys will be all right and have a good time. Warm up in the stores. Get yourself some good chicken dinner while you're down there. Why don't you?
What's the ride down to Frankenmuth from Oscoda in this area?
No, Dirk, I actually love
2
going
hours?
to buy. 2 hours. Yeah. I don't think it takes that long. Hour and a half, somewhere around there. We go the byway, 23 down, 15, and it's a beautiful ride. No problem at all. Do it anytime. And
Here
then
we go.
after
I got the lab monkey story.
Okay.
Well, I thought I did. I keep losing.
Dirk, you are wearing monkey tees. I'm telling you. Nothing but a monkey tease.
Monkey.
You get the monkey off your back.
Get the man off my back.
All right. So for those living up in the Alpena Township area, you'll be happy to hear that there's a public hearing coming on marijuana. They want to bring that medical marijuana to you responsibly. I checked out the laws, guys. Don't panic. It's going to be all right. There isn't going to be the drug dealers hanging out in the back streets. They're really, really responsible with it. Only want to sell it from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Just give it a try before you judge. It's not for everybody. May not be your cup of tea. There's a lot of people out there that could really use that medicine. And for those that like their wine and bud together, you're going to be happy to know that there is
Another marijuana story. Stop this drug peddling you're always up to. Jen's always like, got a marijuana story.
You know, guys, I absolutely light up when I get to send them over to Dirk for approval. I'm like, can I do this one?
I cannot.
When I light up, I don't mean like.
For the life of me, I don't understand how a lot of people that are like almost verging on alcoholic still have a problem with recreational marijuana. All I know is that when I've been buzzed, I drive a little bit slower.
No, you don't drive. Dirk. See,
not that I'm endorsing that, but when I was younger. But here's a question, Jen. Would you rather have somebody coming at you down the road that's flat out drunk, about to fall asleep, or would you like to have a little cannabis user just kind of cruising, you know, and stopping 800 feet before the light and
waiting for the green light to turn green?
All right, from mlive.com, lab monkey truck crash spawns conspiracy theories after a woman at the scene falls ill. Pennsylvania woman first on the scene at last week's monkey crash near Danville is in the center of online conspiracy theories after she fell ill. Michelle Fallon lives in Danville. She's suffering from symptoms after one of the cynomolgus macaque monkeys hissed in her face.
Wait a minute. Did you just say that monkey pissed?
Hissed. Like if you had COVID and you wanted to spray somebody. Hissed with an H. And not a C either. On her Facebook page and an interview, she said she developed a cough, runny nose, and pink eye the day following. The pink eye became so bad she sought emergency treatment. The PETA, the animal rights group's calling for an investigation. They said she got an eye full of monkey saliva and has caused a reaction. Now, I feel sorry for her, but still, it's...
PETA's involved.
PETA fears that people in the entire area could have been exposed. See, there, again, I love I want to save the animals. I don't want to torture animals, but then they go too far. There's no way. It gets better.
Did the guys in the white suits come out?
Feces and urine, Jen, from the terrified monkeys were reportedly smeared across the highway.
No, they did not smear the feces.
Don't need that. Too much information.
Oh my God, no. You keep your feces spreading monkeys. Oh.
So here's where the conspiracy theories start. The Atlanta-based CDC is providing technical assistance and the monkeys were coming from overseas and headed to a undisclosed CDC lab.
Wait, Area 51.
It says the shipment of monkeys was en route to a CDC-approved quarantine facility. The identity and location not disclosed.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. The monkey peed in her face.
So I guess hissed in her face. Eight. Coming up, I want to get to the Oscoda Press that just came out today, and I wish the Oscoda Press would update their news sites more often during the week, because basically this paper is nothing but the internet printed out for the previous week.
Oh, okay.
Well, think about it.
I'm sorry.
But first, there was a township board meeting on Monday. You were in attendance, and sum up what happened at the board meeting.
There was about 11 of us there in the audience. We were protected by two of Oscoda's finest, while the board sat there, and we went over quite a bit of business. They had put a pin in the cemetery expansion property. Well, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to recover from the monkeys. Not my monkeys, not my circus.
Now, I'm going to bet you, since only about 0.0001% of the Oscoda population watches on Zoom or attends the board meeting, the cemetery property came up at the last board meeting, I believe, and is hashtag Fire Todd Dickerson trying to like sell more land or something. I can't remember the details on it.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. It was not this last meeting, like you said, the meeting before. It came up that there is a need for our cemetery to get expanded soon. In the next 20 years or so, we are exceeding capacity or getting near capacity. And frankly, not everybody waits to buy their final arrangements to the end. Some people like to do that earlier. So we really have to start addressing where this land's coming. And it's my understanding there's a good piece of parcel out there that it has been designated for that. And it was my understanding Todd knew this, because Jamie McGuire said, she told him, and then he got up and said, hey, how about we sell the land to the developers that I've been showing it to? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And, well, that didn't go over so well with everybody. There was some people in attendance that are extremely knowledgeable here in Oscoda, and they stepped up and made them aware of where there were some shortcomings in their argument and conversation. And I very much appreciate that we have that kind of community involvement, and we need more of it, if you ask me.
Now,
But anyway.
Have they talked price of this parcel that Todd is trying to sell? Because, I mean, I don't have problems in selling our property, but I do have problems in giving it away at bargain basement rates and not bidding correctly and things like that with the hashtag Fire Todd Dickerson.
Yes, yes. And I am there in your camp completely with your saying, and I'll take it one step further to say, Oscoda's land rich. You look around, there is land everywhere. Todd seems to have an appeal to sell the land that is cleared, that is field property, that is really easy sell. We need that property. Those are our green spaces. Please respect that.
Well, I don't have problems with selling, you know, other property, but don't sell our parks and green spaces. Still can't believe. I mean, can we be honest here?
There's some in green space, if you ask me.
There's what?
What?
Cemeteries fall into green space category, if you ask me. So I was mildly offended when Todd got up there and said he's showing our cemetery land to developers. I'm not saying there isn't room for compromise. It's my understanding maybe they can parcel some of this off. It's my understanding Sabo's involved, Township, because some of the land sits there. The forest, all that is a factor. So there's a lot of people that all have to come together on this. But we just can't go into our meetings willy-nilly like this and, oh, well, let's just change that zoning on that land now. Because honest to God, if you rewatch that meeting, that's what they were attempting to do. They were wanting to rezone that property so that they could develop it. And again, it was for the foresight of someone in attendance that brought that immediately to their attention, that put everything on hold. And that's why we have to attend these meetings, guys. That's why.
Well,
So,
and God bless Jamie. I mean, Jamie seems to be one of the folks on the board that at least has some sort of semblance as to what this town needs to be doing to grow us in the right direction and not the wrong direction. And unfortunately, they've been going after Jamie like they have after Ann for years now.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I am so glad Jamie's sitting on that board. I'm happy Ann's there. I know Ann and we've had our moments, but I respect her hometown heart, where she's come from, what she's trying to do. I say we're coming at it two different directions. But
to say that you've had your moments with her is that's a little muted into some of those exchanges.
What's my love for Ann's muted? No.
Well, I'm going to cue up some Barry White, and we're going to send this one out to Jenn's sweetheart, Ann Richards. She's in Oscoda.
I have a lot of respect for the women that are sitting on the board of 7. There's 2.
Now, I'm going to say one thing, though, about hashtag Fire Todd Dickerson. We cannot really hold him accountable for everything that's going on, because he's getting direction from the EIC committee, the planning committee. So it's really the people that are behind Todd Dickerson. I mean, he's just taking walking orders. I mean, I'm sure he's giving them ideas and stuff, but the final thing, it all falls on the heads, ultimately with the board itself, but with the EIC committee specifically.
I agree 100% that this is not solely a Todd Dickerson, point your finger solely at Todd. You can't, like you said, and that's why we have to start attending these planning meetings and the EIC meetings as well.
I have to go poop. So I'm going to put you on the screen, and I want you to go through what happened throughout that meeting. Actually, since we're talking about EIC and how they're really responsible in the long run, not actually hashtag Fire Todd Dickerson, is, I just lost my train of thought because I'm thinking of pooping. So you go ahead and you take over.
Okay.
Hey, if we can talk about monkey feces spread all over the road, we can talk about my poop problem.
Well, we all have them. We all have to go. Just your timing with our podcasts.
It's one of the things that drives me crazy, though, about Net's cancer is it's the pooping that goes along with.
Yes. I'm sorry. Mine's not cancer. Thank God they found that out, what they tested, but it's autoimmune. So my body attacks itself differently. So I completely respect, and I hope yours can be cured. And
I didn't realize it was an autoimmune thing.
I know, because you said something here recently, and I'm like, I don't want people thinking that I'm portraying myself something I'm not. I'm sick. I have health issues.
So it was funny when we first met. People that have EDL, their color scheme and their mascot is the zebra, because doctors are trained to, if you hear hoofbeats, you look for horses. But with EDL and neuroendocrine tumors, the symptoms replicate usual conditions that might cause whatever symptoms you're having. But unfortunately, it's not hoofbeats from horses, it's hoofbeats from zebras. And after we first got done our first interview, it's like I had this this is my wristband here. And she's like, oh, we're zebras. Or, I'm a zebra. And we hug and we're crying. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You didn't say nets. So just, it's a coincidence that we have this, we're zebras and have the stuff like
Yes.
that. Anyway,
EDS
I'm going to
is
go
what I
poop.
have.
And you go on with what happened at the township board meet. Or actually, we were talking about the EIC. So there was a really weird thing with the EIC committee in a meeting at the library.
Yes, there was. That happened this week. Just, sitting around minding my own business, and people are like, hey, you heard there's a meeting today at, was it like 4:30 in the afternoon at the library for the EIC? And I'm like, no, didn't see that on the schedule. But I quickly pulled up the Oscoda Township, their schedule, and yep, it was there. So I went, oh, okay. Must have added it, said it was some sort of special meeting for something. I'm not going to pretend I knew what it was for. Got my friends and, hey, anybody want to come with me? Let's go see what's going on. I did have a fellow resident want to join and see what was up. And so we met up there. We got there and, again, met by Oscoda's finest. And that is being perceived that I have a problem with our police force. Please. My great-grandfather was an Iosco County Sheriff, Walter Lett. I have a best friend that has worked for the court for 40 years, and her husband is a police officer. My stepfather was a fireman. I have nothing but utmost respect for the people that put their lives on the line to support us, to look after us, and uphold our laws. So, with that said, we arrive at the library. We go in. It's my understanding that most of these meetings are held when you walk into the library to the left, to the back. There's a small room. I'm not going to say it's huge, but there's a room there that they hold these kind of meetings at. And it wasn't there. And the other people that are walking in are walking that way too initially, because that's obviously where they're usually held. But this meeting was moved. This meeting was moved to the tiny librarian's office behind the counter. We've discussed how I have health issues, and I don't feel particularly comfortable putting myself in harm's way with COVID and things that are going on by entering a small room with, I don't know how many people are in there at that point. I can only presume somewhere between 6 and a dozen. And so I made the choice to not go into the room. I stood outside of the room, thought it was odd, and I took one picture for reporting. I come on newstalk989.org, and I'm a podcaster here, and I was just taking a picture for prosperity for the report. Meeting was over, Dirk. I'm telling you, 30 seconds a minute. It was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And they're putting their coats on and walking out. And the resident that I met up there did go into the meeting room, and she came out. And she's telling me, like, wow, like, not entirely certain I understand exactly what happened in there. And it's really mundane, probably. It sounds on the surface that they just had to approve scheduling for the meetings this year or something to that effect. I'm not insinuating that they're back there making conspiracy theories, because it is published online and social media that I'm a conspiracy theory and that I'm I'm a criminal. That's what I'm a criminal. They said I'm a criminal because I have a problem with the police being there.
Well,
I don't have
and
a
let's
problem
not forget, according to Todd Dickerson, I'm a radical and I'm a racist.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a racist that's married to a black woman and has worked with the Somali community in Columbus, Ohio, to work on relations between the public and that community. But I'm the racist, Todd. So I think, too, somebody that was at the meeting said that you were just standing there with your camera on the phone time, but you just took one picture, right?
I took one picture, turned around, there's a little like desk area there, and I literally was like Facebooking on it. I was looking for you, Dirk, and Rick, because I was under the impression you guys were coming.
Oh, I was. Now, but first,
Yeah, I saw you.
on the agenda they put out, and again, lots of times they put out these agendas like right within the time limit they're supposed to post them.
Yes,
But
just under the clock.
But did they say they were just going to vote on their meeting schedule? Because hadn't they already set their meeting schedule at the first meeting of the year?
And you see, when I look back at the bylaws, it says that's when it's supposed to be done. So I thought that was a little odd in itself too. So again, I'm not even going to pretend I understand it. The person that was there asked what just happened. It's my understanding someone tried explaining it. She still doesn't fully understand what it is that transpired. And maybe that's part of the process problem in the process too, is the transparency, my word.
It's always been the transparency of the board, of the EIC. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's the Economic Improvement Committee. But all the Planning Commission, and when the whole thing raised its ugly head for the second time, this time under Todd's direction and selling Paul Bunyan Park at historic Fertile Field, they hate it when you call it a park and when you call it historic. When I first started paying attention to this, when they were trying to move the Township building up to the park, and I called it historic Fertile Field. And Dave Eiler, is he still the chair of the EIC, Dave Eiler? I think he is.
And he's slandered as well.
Well, I just simply say, I don't think we should be, doing that with historic Fertile Field. We need to actually work on improving it to a better park, better festival facility that's designed to host things like Paul Bunyan Days, which I think we should get back to and move them back to the summer and make it a whole week. I remember back in the 70s and 80s, it was all week long. Some of the men would spend a month growing beards, and they'd have axe throwing contests and pie baking contests. It was kind of like a county fair week. And they had a parade. That parade, I mean, if you go in the archives down at the Oscoda Press and look up coverage of those things, pictures of, more people than are out, obviously, for the Christmas parade. But even 4th of July parade, there was I think the newspaper at the time, for one summer, said there was 5,000 people lined up down Main Street through historic downtown. But anyways, so I call it historic Fertile Field. And Dave Eiler comes on. He goes, what makes you think that Fertile's historic? So I actually drove quickly over to the park, went up to Paul Bunyan, and then took a picture of the historic park.
Of the plaque. Yes.
It was like, Dave, this is why it's historic, because it has a historical plaque.
Yes. And that there doesn't seem to be that honor to our history.
Oh, no, well, these people, I have to, except for Dave, born and raised here, but the other people that are coming up with ideas, wrong-headed ideas in some instances, the majority of them, they're not from here. They've moved here in the last 6, 7, I think Fat Bob's been here 15 or something like that. And I tell you what, I've never name-called any of them. We have some nicknames for people, and I very rarely mention name. I'll say this entity or, a person on the board, because I don't want to get into name calling like a lot of these people do. But if Fat Bob's going to literally infer that I'm a criminal, and Todd Dickerson, #fire Todd Dickerson, is going to say in a township email to another resident that I'm a radical and a racist, well, F them. 2 fists, double fingers to you, Fat Bob and Hammerhead. I'm going to stoop to the name calling, because my rule has been since 2007, I'm going to fight fire with fire. I'm not going to be polite if someone's going to go like Fat Bob and the others and Petty are doing to people that simply want to save Paul Bunyan Park and didn't want our brand new completely purchased Lake Street lot to be given away for $400,000 and put a giant shadow over our beach. To me, That's an easy argument, and it's why like 80% of the people I've spoken to in the last 2 years, and it's literally probably over 1,000, have said that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. So the gloves are off when it comes to name calling and insulting, but I'm not going to engage in libel and defamation like these people do.
There you go.
All right.
Did
Where
you hear
were
about
we?
Well, I'm going to totally shift gears on you on this, and we didn't even talk about this one coming up. Down at the beach, did you see that the new signs for the social district are up already? Which I was like, wow, that was alarmingly and shockingly quick. And there's a problem going on already with it. The problem would be is the social district signs indicate that your drinking is permitted from 11 a.m. to midnight. Your park sign says there's no drinking and it closes at 10.
Well, it's never been closed since I was a teenager. That thing's open all night long.
Well, you know what the rules say.
Oscoda Beach, and what's now Rogers parking lot. I think it was A&P back then. Those were the bars for the teenagers.
Yes, it was. Absolutely. I just wish they'd been more responsible with the social district area and size. Occupying 7 blocks of 23, 3 blocks deep for a town this size is a little excessive.
And as far as I know, the deals on that are going to be you have to have a cup from one of 3, the E, the office. What else?
So here's what happened. They included Fertile Field. They included the hotel area. Why did they do that? Why? Because they want to be able to sell it as part of the social district. Now, if I come up from downstate, I stay at that hotel, I'm going to go over and buy me one of them cups. So I can walk around town all weekend, and I'm going to take it back to my hotel room, and I'm going to refill it all weekend instead of buying those refills in your bar.
It's like when I go on a cruise, you can buy a cup that you can get unlimited pop from, and you just hang on to that all week long. And you're absolutely right. And then again, our police force is going to be responsible for going around and checking cups. And are we hiring more police to police this? Because you are encouraging some partying in the streets. Come on, it is what it is. And I'm not against having a good time. I'm telling you, I was a good time queen downstate. I can remember coming out of a gas station so intoxicated and having a really good time. I got in the back seat of the wrong car while my friends were sleeping. Couple guys said, hey, this chick just got in our car.
Oh, yeah. There was literally people in the front seat. It's like I got in their back seat. And they turned around and looked at me. So I get it, and that's part of because I've been there. I get it. I know what, come on. We've all peed in the back alley when we've been drinking. But I don't want to see that happen to Oscoda.
Well, like you mentioned, too, it goes right up to the beach, which then you can't drink. So if you walk over the line, then you're breaking the law, and you have to step back over the line.
So, the way if I'm interpreting properly, the pier will be drinking. Because if you look at the map, it looks like that's where your drinking's allowed, not on the beach. But I am not an attorney. I'm not on any of these commissions. I didn't draw this up. I am just a citizen interpreting what I'm seeing.
Now, see, again, I kind of agree with it, but why not extend it to the complete beach, put in a new boardwalk, and in there, build in like a little tiki bar. Like when you go to the beach in the Caribbean, they're serving up beverages, some margaritas. They got the umbrellas that you can... Oh, Jen, why don't we apply for a vendor's license to rent beach umbrellas on the beach?
I love it. What else can we sell?
We could rent skateboards and rollerblades.
What about those birds? You want to get into the bird thing? The little thing that you rent, the scooters, the bird scooters. Oh, come on. Oh,
Oh,
yes. Girl,
are you talking about like the
yes.
companies where they're scattered all over the place and you can get?
Yes. Yeah. Could you see that here in
Oh yeah,
Oscoda,
yeah.
folks? Come on.
I talked.
See,
In fact, I think I
I
actually mentioned that to Fat Bob a couple of years ago when I actually had dinner with him and his wife.
yeah. Birds would
And
do
again,
amazing.
there's no reason to mention her name, because I don't think she's
Right.
calling me a criminal like Fat Bob has. So, but yeah,
No,
I think that was one of the things we talked with, and I can go into discussions more about that conversation because it really reflects a lot on what we're seeing 2 years later after. So I know what these people are up to. I've heard their plans. I've heard their goals. A lot of them are spot on, but the way they're going about it, like you mentioned, lack of transparency and their attitude. That was the most shocking thing when I was meeting with Fat Bob. It was their attitude. I didn't quite figure it out until I started watching what the township board was doing, what the planning commission was doing, what the EIC, what the zoning was doing, and then I put like two and two together. It's like some good ideas, but wrong way of doing it, and then trying to hide it, and they give the appearance that they're sneaking around our back. At first, I gave them benefit of the doubt. I thought they just didn't realize how to properly promote this sort of thing. And ironically, at the first fertile field meeting that Todd had out in the field in the late winter, I was explaining to him and to Spencer, I said, look, you guys have some good ideas, but your lack of transparency, if not on purpose, is giving the appearance to the entire town you're trying to be sneaky and run around our back.
And it's condescending and insulting to my intelligence when they get out there and they say, okay, they're not on their private page saying this stuff about me. They are on public Facebook pages that have the word Oscoda in them. So anybody that Googles Oscoda is going to come across these sites and they're going to see this hateful, Jenn is stupid. Jenn should be arrested for obstruction because she's so silly. Jenn comes off not just a criminal, but beneath them in what they say. It's so condescending, so holier than thou. They literally have said I contribute nothing, that I have nothing to offer. These are horrible, hurtful, bullying statements, defamatory.
Well, and it's all projection. It's all projection. Anybody, if you want to go through Facebook and look at the comments from people like Fat Bob and other members of our public committee, they simply do not want to argue any facts at all, and the few they do are easily refuted. And it goes like this. When you first show opposition to these people, number one, the first accusation or question is, well, do you even live here? Well, number one, anybody, even at our township boards, can make a comment. We have free speech in America, and if you just come up here for a 2-week family vacation every summer, my feeling is you have every right to be as upset as a resident is. And then even if you're not a resident, but you own property here, maybe a summer home, you pay taxes, these people think that doesn't qualify either. So the first thing they do you even live here? And then the next thing, you don't want Oscoda to progress to the future.
Yep.
All lies, and then they get down and dirty and start their name calling and everything, but they really refuse to argue the facts.
Do you know, and I know you do because I told you, one of the board members' wives made a comment on a thread that was particularly hateful, again, in one of these groups, that was attacking me, again, calling me criminal, all these horrible things. And this woman came on and she said, I'd really like to see a bridge built. And it struck me. I was like, thank God, there is some normalcy somewhere in all of this. And the response to her, hey, can't we build a bridge, was so negative. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from
That was
anybody
one
I
of
know
the.
on.
That's one of
Yes.
the runners of the Now Group with the PFAS
Yes.
people, which have
Yes.
done a
Yes.
tremendous
Save
job.
our water. Yes.
Yeah,
Clean water. Yep. She's doing great work for this town.
but these personal attacks of theirs, and then what they do, like I mentioned, getting into this discussion, it's projection. So whenever you hear any of these people, just about every attacks that they launch are really attacks upon themselves because they are the ones that are hateful. They are the ones that engage in just despicable hate behavior online. And I can't speak for anybody else but myself or for what I've personally read on Facebook. Some of these accusations they're making, I don't know. Maybe some people have gone over the line with things like that, but it's not me. It's not me. I was talking with our new zoning director, who I'm pleased they finally brought in somebody to maybe go after cleaning up our buildings and the real eyesores in a legal point of view. Again, a wonderful person, but these other folks are just they're bad people. They I know from their own mouth they think, and the majority of Oscoda, especially residents that have spent years and years here, are hill jack backwards MFers. That's basically what they think. Now, let's be honest, there's a group of people, residents here, that are just as bad as that from the completely opposite direction. But the more I learn about these people, I don't want to group them all together, but people that represent this point of view, it's the exact sort of animosity. And like Kathy said, there's somewhere in the middle. And 2 years ago when I had dinner with Fat Bob, that's what I was trying to impress upon him. Not all people in this town are racist backwards hilljacks. Well, there are a lot of us Trump people there. Trump won, by the way, in case you don't know, Jen.
Here we go.
In fact, you and I are a great example of how differing views on some things can be in the middle on others. And this whole selling the park and selling the beach lot, I thought from the very start, this is one of those middle ground things where everybody's going to go, no!
I know. And it shocked me. It absolutely shocked me that it's gotten this point. I'm still, God, pray that we can stop this somehow, because it's not the right move.
Well, it's
Dirk,
been going
well,
on now and there was the first Fertile incident. Gosh, what was that? Almost going on 2.5 years now. And then those lies and deceptions and lack of transparency were exposed, and everybody breathed a big sigh of relief. And it was basically, okay, so what can we do to make Paul Bunyan Park at historic Fertile Field, Mr. Eiler, grow and be a place that's going to bring in events like, car shows, the Paul Bunyan Festival, the arts. Think about this. This past summer, I cannot remember her name, but the woman that organized the weekly art fair at Fertile Field.
Jan.
Okay,
Rogers.
If Lake Street property's gone, where they hold the big artisan fair every summer, if that's gone, and if they get rid of Fertile Field, where are we going to have any of these events? Let's put an ice skating rink back in Fertile like there used to be. You could temporarily put in a sledding hill in there. There are all sorts of things that could go on there that every week would bring people into the community. You might sell that thing once for $300,000, but then it's gone. That's all you get. You're not going to see economic money come in.
Business, marketing, what you can do with that field. I know you think it's just a field, guys. Have you ever been, is it Royal Oak in Christmas time when they take the fronts of their buildings and they strip them all with Christmas lights and everything is lit up?
I was just down in the Detroit area, and I don't think it was Royal Oak, but it was another community. They had a historic downtown, and they had these LED lights. I've got video of it, but it was so cool looking.
why couldn't we do that with our town? Then you take Furtout, and at Christmas time, you got Santa, you got Santa's Village, you got Cocoa, you got ice skating, you've got Sled Hill, you've got even more lights going on with a light maze.
And you
There
could have a
is so
warming tent,
much.
one of those big like wedding almost circus
Yes,
tents for, and then you could
yes, put
you
up
could
the
rent
heaters.
ice skates. I mean, how many people actually own ice skates now? Even up here, I think I've got one pair, and I've got an ice skating
Right.
thing in my backyard.
Um, in Detroit, they do a snow festival, and they bring in the big huge slide. They make the big huge to slide down, and I mean, guys, we're Oscoda. You want Detroit doing
And
it better
every
than you?
weekend, you could get different groups like Kiwanis or Lions or JC's to man the hot chocolate and the coffee.
But help! Oh my gosh!
Oh,
And
and this
it's
is the social
awful.
district. They could serve up the hot toddies.
Yes, you could. You know what? Absolutely.
Although the Michigan
And it
State
would be
House of Representatives is looking at banning sledding and drinking stuff.
sledding and drinking too. Wow, man, that guy's rough.
I do want to, before we're done there, I do want to get into the texting while driving thing, but let's get back to
Talk about.
what happened at the Township Board meeting and what some of the folks were commenting about. And I think we lost another $40,000 from a huge mistake.
Well, I was there, and my
I'm going to go
understanding
poop
was
again, so I'm
happened.
putting you on full screen, so you go ahead.
You're going.
I listened to that Jenn and Dirk show where we're all going to come together and smoke a peace pipe. Jen's is going to be full of that marijuana.
Yeah, absolutely. While Dirk's in the bathroom cleaning out his colon.
And they're talking about monkey feces spread over the road. He's pooping on the air. Lord almighty. Jenn and Dirk, what a bunch of radical. They're probably communists.
I am not a communist.
Well, you know me, I'm a neo-Nazi, radical, racist hater, so, you know, there we go.
I know. Well, I love you
You
anyway.
tell them about the meeting. I'm out here for about 2 minutes or 4 or 10.
Got it. All right, so the meeting. There was is a water meter project going on in town. It's been going on for a few years, so nothing new with that. The problem with how they went about it was in the negotiating of the contract and how they were paying for services of it. Instead of finalizing that all up front, they decided to take it on a year-by-year basis. They also decided to go with one manufacturer that produces this. Nobody else has parts for it. Nobody else can service it, things like that. I may be wrong on the servicing part, but I know this is a single provider. So what it comes down to is it's time for our final phase 3 to come together, and she is there from the provider, the manufacturer of all of this, and they open up the proposal for this year, and it's substantially more. If I heard the number correctly, if I'm off, I apologize, but it's my understanding it's about $40,000. I heard that from the board's member. See, I'm going to work on not calling out people's names specifically, but from the board, he said, I quote, "It's like it's the 11th hour, and now you're telling us we owe you an extra 40 grand. So I sat up and I'm just like, wow, they didn't finalize all this up front. Nope. And they're trying to figure out why this has happened. Why are we so out of cost here, out of budget? That's what happened. Cost, everything's gone up this year. Inflation's gone crazy, supply issues, so that's where we're at. They've asked her to go back to her company and see if there's anything else they can do to save some cost. She's not overly optimistic that there's a whole lot that can be saved at this point. Maybe a little something, but not anywhere near the numbers that we're talking. So that's where they're at with that right now. Not too happy at all. The board was to get that news, and it was a little disheartening to hear from a citizen that yet we had another what I think is basically comes down to a contractual understanding and agreement difference. So we seem to run into that a lot with our attorneys or whatever the case seems to be going on.
So
I just hear that.
if they had just paid up front for the whole process, then we wouldn't have seen this
Nope.
$40,000 increase.
They didn't even have to pay it up front, Dirk. They had to negotiate it up front.
Were
They
they
simply just
thinking
had-
that halfway through the project or 2/3 way they would not complete it?
I can't presume to speak on what they thought or didn't think.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought it would be cheaper the longer they waited. I can't answer that. You would have to go back to the meetings or ask them directly.
So it's kind of like buying a house that's got an adjustable rate. You're not sure if it's going to change.
There you go.
And
You
then
could-
what happened at the meeting?
Yes. So, and we haven't even talked about spaceport and the rest of the meeting. I do want to touch on, because someone came on and said, they didn't call me out by name, they called me out by what it is I'd said. And she knew when she said it, she said as much that I would know. You compared me to a threat made with a weapon on social media. I don't want to be confused. I don't want to be misconstrued with that. My statements were made. You went back quite a ways to that statement, and it was made at the beginning of all of this, when I found out what was transpiring with the EIC, the building of the hotel, and I asked why Todd Dickerson was made to feel so comfortable in Oscoda, because Oscoda is not necessarily very warm and opening to outsiders. And what he was doing, the majority didn't like. We were attending meetings and giving him the feedback that we didn't want this, and he got ugly. He got combative. And then he just got outright mean and did what he wanted. So when I said I would go by the Edelweiss and see if he was having dinner, we weren't getting answers when we're going into meetings. I would never approach anybody having dinner with their family or anything like that. But if you're sitting on my board, you're representing my city, you're doing things that we've asked you not to do, you won't tell me why, I feel I have a right to those answers, and if I want to calmly approach you about that, my right to do so.
And
So that was
what you
fine.
bring up is another great point. These people that serve us, regardless if it's the board or one of the commissions, okay, that makes them a public figure. That makes them more responsible to their behavior in the public. I've worked for a whole bunch of radio stations, and one of the things that's in every contract is you will not engage in any activity that will bring embarrassment upon this company.
Thank you.
So these people need to realize they're held to a higher standard, and so they're going to be attacked more strongly as they view it
You're scrutinized.
than one of us. And
Under a microscope.
that just comes with it.
You signed up for that. I'm sorry you didn't realize that when you took the position, but make no mistake, this is our town and you are held accountable. So I made that statement. I didn't ask a bunch of people to gang up with me and go meet Todd Dickerson or anybody anywhere. I also said that I'd like to drive by where he was staying and make a lot of noise with my radio or with a horn, because Oscoda does not have a noise
See, I don't think we need to be visiting any campground or anybody.
I was just making a point.
But again,
I
people,
typically
we see that
never,
in the news.
I don't know where the man stays. I don't want to know where the man stays.
Right.
I'm trying to make a point. The next statement, I says, let's put up a 4-story billboard in his front yard. Why? You're putting up a 4-story hotel over my beach. That's the comparison I'm making.
What I want to do, and I've had this idea for a while, is I want to get a giant 4x8 piece of plywood and make it look like one of those for sale signs you get at the hardware store, like over at Ace, and then put for sale, call #Fire Todd Dickerson.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot.
As far as I know, and again, I'm speaking for myself, there's been no horrible things that I've said to any of these people. I've not threatened anybody like these people have. But the fact that you got Todd with his hammerhead front page story editorial letters the following week to say he was at a bar waiting for Facebook warriors to show up, obviously people that disagree with selling our park, because, you know, people that want to save the park are just horrible, mean people. But to say to Fat Bob, I was down at our favorite watering hole and trusty Hammerhead on my side and none of these Facebook warriors showed up. I mean, the state of Michigan just issued rules on what is wrong, terroristic, threatening behavior in our schools. And if a high school student had said something like that, hell, the school would be locked down. There'd be investigations. Therapists would be in to talk about the staff members and students.
Dirk, did you hear at the meeting how this issue was brought up again to the board and how they chose to address
people
it?
What the board once again is doing and not following state law and allowing citizens to put things on the agenda. Go ahead and sum that up.
The Open Meeting Act, the OMA, we reference that quite a bit here because that is our go-to, states that we have a right to have something added to the agenda of the public township meeting. You can make that request in writing. You can make that request verbally at a meeting. The request has to be made at least 10 days prior to the meeting so that they have the ability to research it and address it adequately if it's with their attorneys, counsel, what need be.
And
But
once we once we discovered that, the first time we made a request, I think it was another citizen, it was put on the agenda once they understood that we can do that. But with the hammerhead threatening people that they have a gun, I had one woman tell me, I'm actually afraid if I go downtown to one of those places that they might be in the room.
I won't go on a Friday, Saturday night anywhere where I think he might be. I don't think he particularly cares for many of us, and he's drinking and carrying a weapon with him. I'm good. I'll stay home.
And if you go, and I don't know if it's still available, we think he might be lurking around under another, but we're going to stay away from that right now. But his Facebook page, his header images had a bar full of booze.
Yeah, it does. It does. So these are his priorities. That's his life.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just interesting that he's at a bar with a hammerhead on his side, and then again, don't have a problem with you drinking, but it's against the law to be in a bar drinking with a gun.
Yes. But, you know, the alcohol, tobacco, firearms people, they don't like it when you combine the alcohol and the firearms. That's why they made a whole thing about it.
You know what? Maybe the social district, we could also make open carry, too. That'd be fun. Because then Todd could be walking down the street with his hammerhead and a drink.
Something on there, too. Was it going to be a hammerhead-free zone asking for a friend? That was not me. The people just for... But then the guy that came back with maybe, just maybe, that's what he calls his baby shark. Oh, my God.
That's the other thing. At the meeting, one of our trustees, Jeremy Spencer, was defending Todd's comment and saying that hammerhead was not a reference to a gun, and somebody in the crowd brought up screenshots right away showing that in the gun community and the gaming community, hammerhead does reference a gun. There's even a video game called Hammerhead, and it's about gun.
And he didn't just say, no, this isn't a gun. I looked it up on Google. He doubled down. Man said there is no reference anywhere on the internet. He said there's no rap song anywhere that references Hammerhead. I mean, he was emphatic.
Oh,
and he said there's no problem.
That's when, because he was like face to face with a citizen, and he starts talking loud. It's like Santa Claus starting to throw a fit.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But I wanna thank the Oscoda Township Police Department for having 2 officers at the meeting to protect us from Todd, who was a no-show. But once Jeremy started getting loud with this citizen, the 2 cops moved over. I don't know if they're trying to keep Jeremy away from the citizen, but thank goodness the police were there to protect us from Todd and then to stop one of the board members, you know, from getting a little too loud with a citizen.
Yeah, because, you know, like you said, he stated emphatically that this is not a gun. Hammerhead cannot be a gun.
Teddy did the same thing, and some other people, when
Yes.
the Hammerhead comment made the front page of the Oscoda Press.
Oh, he went on to say that the reference is for someone that is lesser intelligence. So then the citizen says, so you're saying the comment was this individual was sitting there with somebody on his side, carrying a trusty somebody on his side?
Well, maybe it was a little person, and he had like a baby.
His baby shark.
or maybe he thought it was Shark Week, and he got out his bronze Hammerhead shark belt buckle, and then it turned the belt around so the buckle was on his side.
So as he's saying this, I'm sitting there, and it's insulting the intelligence. It is. To have someone just, because you know, come on. I'll give you, you may not know what Hammerhead is, but you know the reference in which it was used in the context of the sentence he said it in.
I will say, though,
And
from a lot of people I've talked to that were saying he wasn't referencing a gun, the problem is a lot of these people, not all of them, don't know anything about guns. They don't own guns. They're not part of hunting culture, and they don't realize we do refer to revolvers as hammerheads and automatic guns.
Yes, yes.
And the other thing, too,
So,
these people that say it wasn't referencing a gun, they never say specifically, well, then what was it? They don't answer that. They just tell you it.
oh, they do. They're saying it's a person.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's
I know. That's why I'm saying it's insulting to the intelligence, because, come on.
again, it's projection
Really?
again. It's projection.
You're defending the undefensible.
Yes.
The man should not be in a bar with a gun waiting for his opposition to show up and then be arrogant and stupid enough to put it on Facebook, on social media. Come on.
They
You
are the
cannot
Facebook
run our
warriors.
town.
They are the online bullies. They're the cyber bullies. And again, projecting, because that's what they accuse the people that want to save our green spaces as doing. And it's them that are engaging in that sort of behavior. And with the projection is absolutely just outrageous.
It is. So, and I feel the pain every time it's brought up at the council meeting. I don't want to keep talking about it. Really.
You would
I
think
would really
that
like,
after this started back in March, I think.
no, it was October.
These people just think that that they can beat us over the head enough, we're going to go away. There were over 100 people at a Warrior Pavilion meeting. I think there was 40 or 50 at another one. Now, let me say, out of our own pockets here at News Talk, for that Warrior Pavilion, it was like the big one of the summer where 100 people showed up, and probably at least 20 people spoke, and only a few of those were in favor of selling parks and green spaces. So I don't know how many people they want to turn up. That's another thing that they used to do when people would complain. Well, you don't come to the meetings. We've had lots of meetings at the pavilion, and you don't come to board meetings or planning committee meetings. And then so we start showing up by dozens and dozens, and all of a sudden, well, that doesn't count.
Right. We don't matter.
But for that big meeting, we ran commercials on all 4 of our local radio stations here in town, a whole bunch of them, because people do not know what's going on. I mean, people that are on Facebook are a small percentage of our community. So we advertised it on the radio, and then we had over 100 people turn up. Purposely did not do that for the next meeting, and then 30 people showed up. And they're so they don't understand that proved that they're not getting the news out on meetings. And we've had a big issue with them putting agendas out at the last moment. Every meeting, they're violating the OMA about having the notice on very clearly at the front of the web page. You have to click on one icon, and then you have to go to another one. The only thing on the front page that specifically lists the meeting is the calendar, which you have to scroll down to, and then you have to change the calendar to show government events, and then you have to click on the meeting for that date, and then you have to click on the agenda, and then you can finally get the link and the information on the meeting. Total violation of that. Total. And they have been told publicly, by me at least, multiple times. And it got to the point where it's like, I don't know why you're not listening to me. Every single one of these is a violation.
Yep. Well, the news getting out is going to get a little bit harder here soon, Dirk, because at the end of the meeting, when the board started speaking, it became evident, and they put on for the next agenda to have Zoom meetings canceled.
Well,
My understanding
wait,
of that,
no. That was
yes,
part of the negotiated contract with MIC TV that they would also do the Zoom meetings. And again, if you're not aware, they are charging us $1,000 to tape record a meeting and post it on YouTube.
There's $1,000 a month going to MIC TV.
No, two. It's $1,000 a meeting.
Two.
Oh,
2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I do want to say, because I have heard a response on this, that we get funds from Spectrum to pay for the MIC TV. So that's what I was told. Maybe somebody should look into that, because I don't want to slam on something that is, if it's not coming out of general fund or something like that, I appreciate. But still, the fact remains that we are spending this kind of money. The audio is coming out not great on when you play it back on.
We were just talking about that this morning, because I went to go grab some audio clips of some of the comments, downloaded the video from YouTube, and when I'm going to start editing it, it's the same problem that happened on the first meeting. And again, this was just their second meeting in broadcasting the meetings, but the YouTube sound is not the sound from the mixing board that's over the Zoom meeting. So if you're watching and participating on Zoom, you can clearly hear everybody. However they're doing the tape recording for YouTube, it sounds like there's a mic in the room. And when people are speaking, you can't hear them. In real time on Zoom, it's fine. I don't understand why. Zoom is set to automatically record a meeting. Why don't they do that, and then that's the version they post to YouTube?
Well, they're not keeping Zoom if the board votes the way it looks like they intend to.
Well, then they're going to have to renegotiate the entire frickin' contract, because doing Zoom was included in that contract, and they just can't.
So I contend, wait, that you can't redo the contract until the 3 years expires, because they prepaid it or something, didn't they?
Oh, that was the other thing. We never prepay contracts with any supplier, as far as I know.
Now, I know we did it for the theater, and we did that because, in part, there was a need. So if I miss speaking about the MIC TV and being prepaid, I apologize. But I know for a fact the contract was written for 3 years, so I do believe in the contract law that it has to remain in there, that they can negotiate eliminating Zoom after 3 years.
And
but not
also,
before.
if they in the contract, if we want them to also cover planning commissions, or the Central Planning Committee, as I like to call it, it's going to be $1,000 for any other meeting that they want to do.
Yes.
And I literally, since the summer, have been telling them, at the time when it was just the Zoom stuff, poor Ann Richards, she's the supervisor, she's in charge of running the meetings, and they're having her at the same time let people in on Zoom, figure out who needs to speak, And that's like a full-time commitment, especially to something as important as a board meeting. And multiple times I said, hey, go to the high school, say, who are some kids that are good in your tech? And let them get a school credit for running the Zoom meeting. And when the TV thing and they're starting going live again, I said, here's another example. Go to the AV, the computer department at the high school. Hey, can you put together a team of 6 or 8 of your best tech kids that know how to do YouTube and Zoom and stuff, and give them a couple of cameras and a tripod for a minimum amount of money, and then let these kids get even maybe a community college credit, and they can learn a skill. But no, we're going to pay a non-profit. They say on the website that they're a charity, a C3 charity. Well, I want to know of that $1,000, what percentage is going to charity? But our high school kids are getting lost in opportunity and not being able to learn how to broadcast. And again, only like I went through all of the Township Board videos MICTV has done. The average number of people that go and watch on YouTube are literally, I think the average number was like 32 or 28. Now there's some videos, and the last 6 months they're getting more views. But if something has even 100 or 200, that's way. But basically, nobody looks at these things.
No, unless you have to go back for researching a reason or hearing something. I agree. I think the problem came about is the way they chose to do this. Like you said, they didn't have to spend $1,000. If it's okay, let's just go on the premise with me here that MICTV is a charitable organization that's providing broadcasting for, you know, the government networks, what they're covering here, this kind of stuff. And let's say they say, okay, well, we need $1,000 because we're paying all these people. I think you said there were 6 people to run the meetings and all of this. Okay. So they're not making money. They're not giving that money anywhere. They're paying the people for it. But they're providing a charitable service is what I believe where they're going with it. Now, that's all well and good.
Well, all I know is $24,000 every year could buy us a brand new multi-use basketball court for the beach.
And where I'm saying is we could do the same service they're providing through Zoom, through any live streaming thing. It doesn't have to cost. But
look
it's
at
costing.
This. Okay, this is from a company that makes community basketball courts, and they're the ones with like 4 baskets around and multi-marking so you can play volleyball or other games and stuff. Cost of a multi-sport game court ranges from $6,200 to $19,000. So they could buy 1 1/3 brand new basketball courts to replace our 100-year-old cracked, flooded courts for the cost of what anybody with a video camera could do. Now, it might not be a PTZ camera with zooming in multiple angles, but with just 2 or 3 cheap cameras hooked up to a broadcast center, it can be more than what. And I could get you with some high school kids at least better audio on the YouTube feed. You simply have to patch in the mixing board into whatever camera's recording. But we don't need. At one of the meetings, I think it was Mr. Spencer was bragging about this is going to look great. We're getting HD cameras, and if you want these cameras, they're $5,000 a piece. And it's like, no. For an average of 30 people to watch a meeting, we don't need those types of cameras. Most people are watching on their phone anyways, and you don't need all of those gizmos. We're not doing a production on C-SPAN or anything like that, Mr. Spencer, Santa Claus.
My friend, we're going to have to turn this podcast into like 3 parts if we don't wrap this up. So.
We do. But yes. First of all, real quick, yes. The State House, as I mentioned earlier, has overwhelmingly approved bills to ban speaking on a cell phone, posting to social media, or otherwise using electronic devices that are not hands-free while driving. They passed by 75 to 26. And I kind of agree with that, Jen, because honestly, when I'm out driving, especially at night, I'm not worried about drunk drivers throughout the day, 24 hours a day. I'm always worried about someone wandering over a line coming head on to me, not because they might be drunk and because they're texting while driving. Fortunately, though, I don't know about you, but I am a skillful and safe enough driver to text and drive safe.
As long as you don't have any kids with you.
Oh,
friend,
you hypocrite. All right, so we want to wrap this up. It's going to be cold the rest of the day and cold this weekend. That's your complete weather forecast.
Stay warm, Oscoda.
We'll try. News Talk 989, Jenn and Dirk, look for us. Are we going to try to do daily now? Because, I mean, seriously, thanks to everybody who watched the few podcasts that we've done. Did you say one of them had like over 1,000 people listen to the podcast or something crazy like that?
It's crazy. We're putting 10,000 views a month on our news talk. Oh, before we go, guys, Dirk, I got to say this. I love you. Guys, we're looking to turn this into something for our community, and we're going to need some help to do that. We've set up some places that if you choose, if you're in the ability to help us bring these resources to the community, please do so. We want to be there for everybody. For if you got something that needs to be covered, you've got a heartfelt story that needs to get out there, you're hurting, you need coverage, we want to be there for you.
And we're also here for you, too, if you're interested in doing a podcast to provide more content. And it, doesn't have to be about government or politics.
No.
We're working on having our first additional podcast coming out. And a wonderful woman. It's one of those unfortunate stories where she and her husband retired, moved to the area. They bought a great little piece of property that's literally tucked inside of the National Forest. They bought some 4x4s and some off-road stuff, and her husband passed away. Like literally within the year that they moved here. And that's a story I've heard from a lot of retirees where a spouse passes away. And so she's going to do a podcast for people that are in that situation. And not only here in the 4-county area, but I was telling her this is something that would appeal to a national audience. So if anybody has any idea for a podcast, it could be monthly, it could be weekly. We've got wonderful new studios. We've just, we're beginning to open right downtown, and we can train people on how to do it. What's that?
I said, you never know who needs to hear your voice and the difference, the impact you can make.
Yeah.
Just simply listening and being there. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do we have a GoFundMe now? I think you put together a GoFundMe page.
You can actually on GoFundMe, you can on Facebook, or actually, Dirk, I think we have to get our nonprofits, our foundation, started so we can let Facebook do that.
And speaking of that, I haven't heard back from the attorneys on forming all of this, but we're probably going to need a board of directors, I believe, with foundations or not-for-profit 501c4s. So if you maybe are interested in working with us on growing this into a community resource and allowing people to get their voices heard, because podcasts are blowing up, all the cool kids are doing podcasts. So if you want to be a cool kid, you can do that. But also you'll be able to help us out as well if you just want to see this as a good resource for the 4-county area. This is your mayor, Osco. Isn't it funny how people have, I don't know if maybe a lot of people never listen to the radio or morning shows or talk shows, but lots of times hosts have funny names. I worked with a guy that he was the governor of Dayton, Ohio. So when I say that I'm the mayor of Oscoda County, Ted, and you other people, it's kind of like funny. Like I had the mayor of righ on our Meet the Mayor segment that we're going to start doing regularly and interviewing mayors and supervisors. But the mayor of righ was in, and he just thought it was hilarious. So if you watch that podcast, under his name I've got Mike Hoadley, mayor of righ, and then there's me, Dirk Hunt, mayor of Oscoda County. And we had I was like, now look, I've made myself the self-appointed mayor of Oscoda, and he's, well, Dirk, I'm a duly elected mayor, but you also being the governor of the 4-county area, I am going to apply to have Arionet County admitted as the 5th county and make it the 5-county.
I love that. Aww.
So the mayor of Oscoda County and the queen of Oscoda,
Jenn, not Palin.
And make sure you like and also follow newstalk989.org on Facebook. You can like a page on Facebook, but then you need to also follow it so you get our news feeds and all of the information we're posting on a daily, almost 24-hour basis. Yeah. So not only like News Talk on Facebook, but then click follow so you don't miss any of the information about the 4-county area. Oh, soon to be 5-county areas.
Yes, 5 county.
Hey, you have a great day.
Go to Jenn, not Palin.
Yes. You're a blonde, Sarah Palin. Now you just need to work. You need to get rid of the Michigan accent and move further north and get that more Nordic.
I'll help keep an eye on Russia.
Look out for all you mama bears. All right, you have a great rest of the day and good day. Oscoda on News Talk 98.
Down, one fist in the air, I would stay my ground. If I was black, I'd say, the police, I'd say,